Video game design has changed a lot in the last decade or so. We've gone from small, short, linear narrative-based gameplay experiences leading the industry to now very large, grandiose, expansive adventure-based titles leading the industry. And as we've gone this way, players have come to expect more from their games. They expect larger maps, more mechanics, less load times, better graphics, decent animation systems, good voice acting, good writing, and sometimes even ethical business practices. In all seriousness, though, games are more demanding now than ever, and the industry is larger than it ever has been. And this is great, but it has come with some downsides. Now, there's a concept in business theory which basically describes the importance of a broad appeal in a modern marketplace. Basically, if there's a large market that's very diverse that you're trying to appeal to, you need to either target a very small segment or niche of that market so that you can differentiate yourself, or you need to have such a broad appeal that you intersect with multiple customer subcategories, giving you a very broad appeal. And in that broad appeal, you differentiate yourself. Think of your average retail distributor, for instance, like a small local business that sells clay pots that are meant to hold Jamaican gold. And yes, this is an actual store where I live. Hashtag Colorado for the win. It may appeal to a small segment or niche, but it will likely fail to find larger success in the broad marketplace because it is so focused on that niche. And the only way that they could expand that and expand their venture is to start appealing to a broader swath of clientele. On the other hand, you have a retailer like Walmart, which is one of the world's largest because it can appeal to so many different customer subgroups. So many people come in and are interested in what they have because their appeal is so broad. Sure, their clay pots may not be of as high a quality as our local friends' pots, but they're certainly going to be more accessible and likely cheaper because it's part of such a broad network. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. The same principle applies to the video game industry. When game publishers are looking for the next game that they're going to fund and promote and sell, they typically do this by looking for what's going to give them the largest return on their investment. Now, despite what some other YouTubers may say, this is perfectly fine. The chief end of a business is to serve its stakeholders. And in the case of big multinational corporations, that means making sure that you maximize profits and increase dividends. Where this can go wrong is when this mentality infects those smaller mom and pop pot shops, which previously were so successful in catering to their small niche. If our local friends want to expand their business and start selling things other than small pots, it's okay, and no one can blame them for doing that. That's the smart thing to do. But their core clientele will likely become frustrated and possibly even abandon them, as is their right, in the process. This is what has happened multiple times in the gaming industry, but we've seen it happen very recently, and that's the example we're going to talk about today. Bethesda Game Studios. At E3 2018, Bethesda Game Studios announced that they were going to be releasing a new Fallout game, one unlike anything that any of us had ever seen before. Now, for those of us who had been following what Bethesda had been hinting at for a few years, we were terrified. But the broad public welcomed this announcement and sat in antsy anticipation. What we received was the news that Bethesda was going to be releasing an entirely online multiplayer Fallout game made using all of the assets developed for Fallout 4. It was an online expansion that they were going to charge full price for, and their fans were not thrilled. Now, I think it's very important that I point something out. Bethesda's fans were not upset because one of their favorite franchises was being taken online and stripped of its single-player narrative focus. That had happened to them before with Elder Scrolls Online. What they were actually upset about was the fact that Bethesda Game Studios were the ones that had the blood on their hands willingly and proudly. You see, with Elder Scrolls Online, Bethesda Softworks made the brilliant decision to have ZeniMax Online develop the game so that when fans inevitably came up and demanded answers of Bethesda Game Studios, they could wash their hands and say, nope, see, we pulled a Pontius Pilate, we had nothing to do with this, it was ZeniMax, our parent company, we had no say in it, it wasn't our fault. And this is why when I say that this was a brilliant decision by Bethesda Softworks, I mean it. It was brilliant. It completely shed any semblance of responsibility from Bethesda Game Studios and their creative team. And that is why Bethesda Game Studios' choice to develop Fallout 76 in-house is so significant. This is why their fans were so upset, because it served as proof positive that Bethesda was no longer connected, didn't understand, and didn't care to understand their core fan base. Bethesda was hit with a cascading plethora of accusations, most of which alleged that Bethesda had sold out and were only pursuing an online Fallout game and series because of the highly lucrative nature of these online co-op games. And the sad thing about all of this is that those accusations were true. Now, unlike some other YouTube gaming journalist, commentator, whatever, something or others we are, I fully recognize that this is a perfectly rational thing for Bethesda to do. The simple reality of the fact is that Fallout 76 is going to make Bethesda Game Studios a lot of money over the next few years. Maybe not from me, maybe not from you, but in the same way that every other online multiplayer co-op game has garnered money from a few big whales that spend an exuberant amount of money on the games that they play. Where I think it's fair to criticize is the fact that Bethesda chose to do this themselves instead of passing it off to a sub-development group where they could wash their hands again. It just shows how out of touch and conceited they've become. They either honestly thought that this is what their fans wanted, or what's more likely and what's even worse is the fact that they likely didn't care what their core fans wanted, but instead wanted to expand their appeal into the multiplayer market with no regard for the fans that made them what they are. This would be like our pot shop friends deciding that they were going to start selling, I don't know, decorative flutes next to their pots, and that if they're actually, you know what, their customers would probably like that. You know, it would be like if they decided that they were going to start selling clay adult toys next to all of their pots. And then they decide that they're going to take all of the pots, the product that made them what they are, that made them successful, that their fans and customers actually want. They take all those pots and they move them behind the counter and try to get their customers to forget about them. And then when the customer comes in and asks for those clay pots, they say, no, we're focusing on these artificial cucumbers now. Check those out. That's what we're focusing on. You better like it because these are in the past, or at least get these out of mind. We're going to return to those later. And then the customer insists, no, this is actually what I want. I actually do want this product that made you who you are and that you're very good at producing. And they say, sorry, no, we're doing plastic Johnsons now. That's what we're doing. Get over it. Sure, this would expand their core clientele and reach new markets, but in the process, it would tick off their core client base, the people that made them who they were and honestly loved this company, just for the sake of potentially expanding. Because all of these people that made them who they are, their core client base, would feel disrespected and abandoned. In the same vein, Bethesda can do whatever the hell they want to do, but they are not entitled to our affection or praise in doing it. That is what Bethesda has become, a company of hippies that have stopped selling their reefer storage containers in order to focus on their growing and much more lucrative dildo business. More power to them, but it's a real shame. How about that analogy, though? Kind of completely got lost in the mud, didn't it? I just embraced it. As I was writing, I was like, this is making less and less sense, but I'm just going to stick to it because I kind of find this funny. Hopefully you found it interesting. I want to hear your thoughts on this topic down in the comment section below. I do read through all the comments that get sent to my phone, which amazingly, this is completely beside the point, but I want to show you this because I'm really pissed off about it. I have like the Note 9 and I have this super nice glass screen protector. I dropped it yesterday and the screen underneath the glass protector cracked, but the screen protector is fine. Like, what even is it? What's the point of the screen protector? I called Zag and I was like, what the hell? Like, are you going to give me $100 to replace the glass? And they're like, no, we can send you a new screen protector. No, the screen protector's fine. The screen's broken. First world problems, but that's what I'm saying. Anyway, I get your comments sent to this thing, so leave those and then I can read them wherever I am. It's cool. I feel bad for myself. I'm bad at outros, guys. I'm sorry. Bye. I'll see you. Bye.